Hey, YouTube friends, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of our series on things you should be thinking about 6 to 12 months before you start your van life adventure. In the first part of this series, I've focused on some questions that may help you decide what kind of van you should buy and what type of trip you should plan for yourself. In this segment, I'm going to give you guys some intangible considerations that nobody told me and I didn't see mentioned on any other van life channel that will help you have a better trip, may influence the type of equipment you buy. But more importantly, it's going to help you get ready for your trip, plan your trip, and have a better trip. Let's get into it. So the first thing I'll tell you is that you need to start planning sooner rather than later. And I'm going to tell you that for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you plan to stay in established campgrounds, particularly established campgrounds in or around national parks, you will need to plan 6 to 12 months in advance. Some campgrounds release their reservations, particularly popular national parks, a year ahead of time, and those are sold out usually within a day or two of the reservations being released. So if you're starting this and you're 6 months in, or you're 6 months ahead of your trip, you're already behind the 8 ball. That's okay. There are ways to overcome that, but you need to start planning now, which also means route planning. And I'm going to tell you guys that route planning is a lot more difficult than I understood when I started van life, and nobody told me that. I spend a good day a week minimum, sometimes 2, dealing with logistical issues, and part of that is route planning, overcoming things I didn't anticipate, timelines that get out of whack. For example, I had to reroute. Right now I'm talking to you from Dole Mountain Campground. It's absolutely beautiful, but I just spent a couple days boondocking in downtown Atlanta because one of my bikes got messed up and I had not planned on that. And so the whole schedule, this whole beautiful itinerary I spent 4 to 5 hours trying to move things around just to overcome that. So route planning is difficult, particularly when you're trying to take into factors like weather, distance, mileage, etc., etc. And you need to start having a base plan of where you're going to be so you can start doing those key campgrounds that you say, I don't want to miss this opportunity. If you want to stay in Acadia National Park, you need to be on that now. If you want to go to Big Bend National Park, you need to be on that. Yosemite, I'd almost say forget about it, but that's not true. You can absolutely get in. So that's number 1. Number 2, I want you to start noticing your habits, big and small. And by this, I mean, look at what you do on a daily basis and start thinking, how important is this to me? What can I live without? When I cook, what utensils do I use and what dishes do I make? And I'm going to tell you that, say this, right? We've talked in our first video about the fact that you have 60 square feet. You have very, very limited space in van life. And if you wait till a week or 2 ahead of time to start packing your van in your brain, you're gonna pack all the wrong stuff. Trust me, I did this and I did that. And I did exactly that. I packed a bunch of stuff I didn't need, and there were some things that I just didn't even think I needed, and I ended up buying later when I had them sitting at my house and now they're sitting in a storage unit. So here's what I say. Start being very observant and making notes now. So for example, when you cook dinner, note what utensils you use. If it's a dish you're gonna make in the van, is it a dish you're gonna make in the van? Can you do it in 1 or 2 pots? Do you really need the big set of mixing bowls? Because for example, I brought an entire set of mixing bowls. They're still in plastic wrap. Did I need them? No, because I use my pots and pans because I don't wanna dig them out of the chest they're stored in the back of the van. So you see where I'm going with this, right? Start thinking of what camp-friendly dishes you can make. Start practicing making those dishes with limited utensils. Start thinking of how you're going to do that, and also think about what you really want and what you need. So by that I mean, for example, one of the greatest gifts of van life, and van life gives you, I'm gonna do a whole video on this, gives you the ability and forces you to set priorities. It forces you to decouple material things from happiness. It forces you to decide need versus want. It forces you to set your priorities, and it forces you to realize things that truly bring you joy. And they can be material things. For example, My big indulgence is I carry a Waku espresso maker, the handheld one, but I carry a Breville milk frother. I love that thing. It takes up a lot of space, but you know what? I have a latte almost every morning, and I love my morning latte. Absolutely love it. It brings me unequal joy. I can't now, there's some days where I have instant coffee or something like that, because for example, this morning we're moving from a boondocking situation and we need to be out by 7 in the morning. I had my instant coffee ready to go, heated some water in 2 minutes, poured it, got behind the wheel and drove quickly. But most days I start my day with a genuine solid cup of espresso or latte actually, but espresso based latte. So start looking at what brings you joy, but also what can you remove from your life. There's whole books written about this from a, I forgot the name of it, but you hold it. If it doesn't bring you joy, you throw it away. I don't go to that extreme. But what I am advocating is that you take the time to say, this is something that I really want to live. And if I'm making trade-offs, this is something I'm willing to leave. This is something I'm not willing to leave, right? And bear in mind, when you start van life, and this is just a quick side note, you probably have less space than you think, particularly if you're going to be boondocking, because you've got to take all your equipment, you got to carry safety equipment, such as a first aid kit. You got to carry extra food, you got to carry extra water. I carry 2 gallons of water in case my plumbing system fails and I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere. I figure that gives me a couple days to get rescued. So you got to start making provisions for that. My third tip for you guys is start noticing your fears and insecurities so that you can start to overcome them before you start your van life and realize you have them. And I'm going to give you 2 examples from my personal life. And number 1 is my fear of getting lost. I did not realize how deeply ingrained that fear is in me, but it's ingrained, and it's ingrained solidly. And until I started realizing that I was scared to get off of the road, I really had a hard time doing that. It was hard for me to boondock. I had planned on boondocking, and then I realized I was spending most of my time in established campgrounds, and I'm like, what was the point of buying a van instead of, say, a Class B or Class A or Class C or Class B ARV if I'm just gonna stay in established campgrounds? And I was like, it's because you're scared of getting lost. And what actually helped me to overcome it was I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and I started noticing things like, if I turn around, I actually have a pretty good sense of direction. I just have to turn around. I learned some tips and tricks from pros about how not to get lost. I also started learning how to use my GPS efficiently. All of this would have been much, much easier to do had I not realized this fear whilst I was living in a van, because I could have done hikes to overcome it. I could have practiced using the GPS in my car instead of when, frankly, my life depends on it, because my navigation, I'm all out there alone. I'm not on a roadway. So start overcoming those fears now. And it also helps you know what kind of van to buy, as we covered in chapter 1. You can watch that video here, or it will help you be realistic about what kind of trips you're going to take in your route planning. So for me, number 2 is food insecurity. I have to pack way more food than I thought because I have this absolute insecurity of running out of food. I don't know where it came from. I suspect I have some knowledge of when it developed, but I think it's actually a fairly new thing. And I didn't know it until I actually showed up to pick up my van from Adrenaline HQ, where my buddy Tim was outfitting it for me. And he looked at me and goes, how much food are you carrying? That's like a month's worth. You're in a van. And I realized he was right. So had I known that, I might have planned differently. I might have taken more ready-to-eat meals. I'm not saying that's what I would have done, but I would have started dealing with that insecurity sooner so that it wasn't affecting my van life. And my final tip for you guys kind of goes back to the first part, which is you need to start planning your logistics early and often. Start looking at your route planning and start getting on the list at campgrounds, right? There's a great tool. There are sold out scans that will help you know when a sold out campground becomes available, and some that will auto book for you. I am not paid to endorse RV, but I have had some great luck with RV. So start looking at those options and start figuring out, I'm willing to say move quickly to go to this campground should I get in and I'm willing to reroute, because a lot of times you're going to need a plan A, plan B, and plan C. And so start making those lists so that you don't have to deal with them on the road. For example, when I go into a city and I'm boondocking, I have at least 3 points where I plan to stay already set out. Why? So if I go to if I go to space 1 and I get a bad vibe, or I figure out that I'm gonna get harassed by the popo, I've already got a place to go, right? It may be a Walmart, it may be a Cracker Barrel, it may be 20 miles away, but I know where I'm going, so I'm not figuring that out 3 in the morning if I get the knock. Start that now, because if you have those lists, it will save you a lot of time, a lot of heartache, and a lot of hassle. All right, my YouTube friends, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our content, and feel free to drop a comment, join the conversation. Let me know that you're enjoying this content so I can keep making it. All right, take care.